All right, welcome to Niger Unfiltered, a symphony podcast. And I'm Victor Iroele. Our guest on today's edition of the program is a successful legal practitioner, politician, a policy strategist, law and governance expert, as well as director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Dr. Sam Amadi is our guest on the show this morning. Good to have you.
Thank you. Maybe, I don't know how much of politician or political actor, but let's go.
At least you've made attempts here and there to go into it, so that also qualifies you as one.
Okay.
All right, now that political campaigns are officially kicked off, which presidential candidate will you be supporting this 2027 election?
I will support the presidential candidate I supported in 2023 because it looked like a rematch. Substantially, the major actors, major presidential candidates who can probably win at the end of the day remain President Tinubu, Mr. P2B, and Mr. Atiku Abubakar. So nothing has changed in the political landscape. And in 2023, after due consideration, looking at who fits this moment best, looking at whose profile suggests capability to disrupt the pattern of politics as corruption, as state capture, whose messaging conveys the urgency of transformation and understanding the fundamentals of a new political economy, I chose Mr. P2B. I was, for context, working privately as part of Atiku's strategy group, which 11 of us himself, initially David Mark, Sule Lamido, Liele Moke, Ibori himself, Dr. C, Dr. Nwodo, and of course, former Governor Shima, and myself. I was a secretary. I was mostly helping with these other great people to craft the policy. But at the point, I saw the youth movement. And I remember in a meeting we had then, we used to meet regularly somewhere in Maitama, from 10 o'clock to look up and draft the strategic document and the campaign structure. Towards the end, when the campaigns was about to start, really, I raised the issue around the fact that P2B phenomenon was catching up. And what was interesting to me wasn't P2B himself, was the idea of the youth movement, the fact that post-SARS, there was this sense that Nigeria needed something new. And the aggressiveness, disruption. And so I saw these young, impressionable youth, some of them just fresh graduates, many of them not just youths, but professional, progressive-minded elites and professionals coming around Mr. P2B, and I raised the issue in that meeting. I said, we must have to address this concern of young Nigerians and professional Nigerians that the old politics is not serving them well. How do we know? But it didn't get a hearing. I recall Sule Lamido telling me, Sam, are you a politician? Have you won an election before? Well, I said, I did a primary. I didn't win. He said, you have no right. Just stay as an intellectual. And he said, look, if P2B gets 1 million votes, call me, I'm not a politician. Then, of course, Professor Ayu, who largely brought me into that game, said the same to say, Sam, look, you're not a politician. Peter can't get 2 million votes. If Peter gets 2 million votes, I'll go in exile. It was only Nwodo who said something to the effect that, look, there's some shifts, you see. So I was convinced that these guys were not seeing what I was seeing. And that made me write respectfully to say that I couldn't continue being partisan. But my sympathies were with Mr. P2B, and I followed through that sympathy. So in this election, nothing has changed. The profiles are the same. Atiku Abubakar is on the game in the ADC. It was then PDP. Mr. P2B is in the game in another party. He was in Labour, now he's in NDC. Only Mr. Tinubu, the president, has remained in APC expectedly. So nothing has changed. 2023 redux, one could say. My support remains with Mr.
Realistically speaking, what are the strengths of P2B and what do you think is also his weakness that could give him the edge over Atiku Abubakar and President Tinubu come this 2027 election?
Okay, there are some contested narrative as to who actually won the election. Many obedience and P2B himself, and in some extent myself, think that probably he won 23. I can't be very definitive because INEC didn't give us a good picture, and of course we can do extrapolation. So take for example River State. It's not clear, unofficial, but official, unofficial, that Mr. Peter B won, defeated both Atiku Abubakar and Tinubu in Rivers. Okay, you saw the BBC report. We now know that there were so many mutilations. So if he had given him Rivers, and many people say Benue was a victory for him. So these are areas that people claim. Southern Borno, some people claim he won. Some people say he did very well in Southern Borno. In Lagos, where he won, the figures people are getting is about a million plus. If you go to Plateau, I was very sure of that. Jank himself said they got 1.2 million votes. So it's likely and very probable that P2B won that election in terms of votes. But of course, he was not declared the winner, so he lost. So why do I think he could beat Atiku Abubakar and Tinubu? I think that Tinubu ran in 2023 as the man who fixed Lagos. Even though he didn't campaign, even though he didn't really campaign as much, he didn't go about, he didn't even debate. So he was like a myth created around Tinubu and Lagos. I recall even in Chatham House, he had surrogates and proxies who filled in. It was more like this coronated guy who everybody kind of feels can get a job done. We don't even need to ask him whether he can get a job done, but he can get a job done because he got Lagos done. Of course, I have my idea about Lagos. Lagos was not a true success because I go back to Lagos here and now and I still should. I see my people. I measure by other people I know in Lagos who are not either financial gurus or 419 top guys or business entrepreneurs, known as there's no mobility in terms of, they are doing their businesses and they have grown. So Lagos is still a question mark. But the bigger question is that Tinubu then is not Tinubu today. And the other question is that actually he's not the guy who did most of the heavy lifting. Maybe some people say maybe Fashola did a greater job. Maybe Ambo did a great job. The old man, Jakonde, did fantastic. Tedola, probably something. So, but that was Tinubu owns that moniker as the man who fixed Lagos. So he probably got a pass. Many people voted for him. But now he's going to run on records. And I think that the records are bad. If our politics is responsive, meaning a politics that reflects the people's actual feeling about candidates, he would lose woefully because, especially APC, by the way. APC is now in power for 3 cycles, about 16 years. If Tinubu finishes, which he will do, these 4 years, APC would have been in power for almost about the time PDP was, okay? But democracy works in cycles. So when you elect a party and they fail to deliver according to expectation, they are voted out. I was convinced that if we had a free and fair election, they would have voted out APC last time because it's not about Tinubu person. It's about the party has failed. 8 years of Buhari was a classic failure. And that 8 years was enough to send APC packing if our democracy followed the textbook. Now, Tinubu is going to run on performance. And like I said, no arguments. He has failed. He failed in all the promises. He failed in electricity. He failed in everything he promised. So, but then, this is Nigeria, and our politics has to respond to the context. So he must still put up a surprise based on party dynamics, based on electoral system, based on nature of politics and consciousness, ethnicity, religion, Muslim. So many things are still open for, you can't predict exactly how it's. Let's watch the campaign. But I would say potentially he's running with a deficit as somebody who is in power, who is not going to, campaign on what I would do, but on what I've done. Now, Atiku Abubakar seemed to me not as strong. In 2023, that's my own analysis. He ran with a PDP, much structure. His people will narrate it as he was sabotaged internally, the G4 and the G5 or G and all that. But again, his electoral record does not show he has strong constituency votes. That this is his. That, either the platform he runs supports him, and the structure. 2019, which many people believe they won with P2B on himself, and PDP is strong then, and P2B carrying the South, as they say, and him, that worked well. But so I would think that the electoral map as it is today does not guarantee an Atiku victory at the first ballot. I think that depending on how the North votes, okay, he might get to be number two, and then perhaps enter runoff, which could depend on the dynamics of runoff, help him. But if I'm looking at electoral map and say who's going to win where, who's going to do 25, I'm not going to place him anywhere in the South as likely to win anything. Maybe more popular than there. In the North, I see him fighting stiffly with Tinubu and P2B with Pop Council. As it has today, if I was looking at what happened in 2023 and what I think may happen, there could be some serious sharing with perhaps himself aging. Last time in the North, Tinubu won slightly. Tinubu's presidency was actually a northern president. The North brought Tinubu into the game. Tinubu lost the South to P2P, Southwest cumulatively, and won the North because of majorly the vote from Northwest and, of course, some part of North Central like Kogi and Niger. P2P defeated him apart from those two areas. He won Benue marginally, and Peter won the rest. So Tinubu's victory, derives from strong northern support. How far will his lieutenants hold that territory? How much will Muslim sentiment play as it did perhaps for him then? Not too much, I think. Then how much will the North rally around Atiku and say, okay, this is our time. If they do and knock off Tinubu, then Atiku might have a chance to come up number of votes, perhaps highest or second, depending on how the other places vote, but won't get the required spread to win. Do you get what I mean? Because he needs to do well in the South. I mean, the North has numerical superiority, but the Nigerian electoral architecture is well designed to compensate. So you're going to win highest number of votes, but you're also going to do very well to third in spread. So that spread is really where I write him. I almost conclude that he can't win the election at the first ballot, totally. Then if you come to Mr. P2B, if you watch his electoral map, he won the South. So one conclusion in the South is, South. Lost to Tinubu in the Southwest, but did very well in Lagos. Atiku won in Osun, where Adeleke, PDP held out for him, which I think today they're probably going to work for Tinubu. So Obi has to hold those his constituency, perhaps improve the voter turnout. So if he gets 70% in Southeast, which he could likely get, but it's something now of each state having 1 million, or 800, then it's going to push beyond this 6-point-something million votes. North Central is critical for his pathway because Tinubu is also making a lot of good inroad in the North Central because of the politics of appointment and very strong seduction by his wife and the FCT minister. So PDP campaign has to fight hard to win back the North Central. And the Middle Belt, strong showing. A lot is shifting again. Tinubu is also playing some politics, smart politics there, with the Balami and others. So, but the point going for P2B is that what it stands for resonates with the people so that the undertakers, the gatekeepers, and the middlemen who helped him are dispensable. You see, yes, PPW's weakness is structure. At some point, you need structure to close the deal. You need organization, which it doesn't seem to have competitively relative to. I mean, the other two candidates have a better organization and structure. That's fair to say. Yeah, and he does not pride himself as the organizational man. In fact, in many politics, maybe he's a champion of networks, small groups that are held together by common ideology, common belief, common trust in him, and they will go and work. In the last election, it was like spider game. It was like mosquito. Everybody's on the field. And that's, I think, is where he has strength. Retail politics. He has the energy to traverse Nigeria. He has the energy to probably go to each, let's say, local government in this country in a campaign. And talking to people, he has the appeal that no other candidate will have in terms of people meet him and they say, wow, if somebody meets him in the gym, for example, and he's doing 1 hour on the treadmill, and the lady says, this is real. The lady says, look, you are my president. Because something different. I mean, the lady sits back and watch Nigerian president or Princess wannabes, and they're like moving like a tired engine. Somebody's nudging them. They're stumbling. They're just jerk and, fit and start. And he sees this person sprightly. And he said, this is what I want. This is how the world is moving. So his optics is very good. His symbolisms are excellent. So somebody sits and says, this is my president. Or somebody sees him in the airport walking briskly. Or somebody hears him talk about the things that matter. So I think that at the level of retail politics, that's where he's going to excel. He's not going to excel in the big, land at the airport with, your team puts up money and you recruit 1 million people to come at the rally and the sea of heads. That's the politics of structure, those who have capacity, because those people are paid. You have to, even if they don't charge you money, you have to mobilize them in and mobilize them out. I don't see Peter excelling that. I think he understands his competitive advantage. That's why he's going for the retail politics. He's going to go to hinterlands, talk to people, talk to groups. And then those people evangelize, take up the message of talking to the neighbor. I know a strong APC leader in my state, Imo State, who called me and said, look, we're in crisis. My daughter says, all of them say they're obedient. He told me that one of his worker, who is NYC from Benue, came and begged him. I said, sir, please, I'll go and register. I want to beg you one thing. So what is it? So don't do that big, sir. Yes. Everything you want me to do, I'll do. But allow me to vote for Mr. Peter before president. I'll vote for other people. So he was stupefied. He promised the lady. So those are the kind of, changes. People, look, Nigerians are connected. Nigerians are no longer, we parents can take our children a dump. We can control them, but they are not. They are in a situation where they see what's going on in the world. They see how presidents look like, and they feel like, this is what I'm going to be. In fact, somebody told me that a lot of northern kids, most of these political heavyweights, their children are closeted obedience. And I've seen a few of them walk down to me, sons of notables who would never probably vote for a P2B because of institutional commitments. But their children have voted. So I think that Peter has strengths and weaknesses as to what's going to matter in the 2023 are three things. Peter, Atiku has strength in terms of support base, in terms of elites across the country, people who have worked with him, network, people who can probably finance his campaign, people who believe in him, people who has shown, some graces. And it's a true and true Democrat who has, for many decades, at least for the last 20 years, been actively fighting, campaigning, politicking in the right way, which is the democratic pattern. So for me, of all the people who are running election, Atiku is probably the star Democrat for me because it's somebody who has engaged politics, not from a violent perspective, but engage politics as a disciplined process of seeking for votes. It doesn't mean he's the best to govern. In my sense, for me, no. I think he's good. But I think that we need disruption. We need some symbolic shifts, and the shift means shift to a developmental state. And right now, it's Peter who has that message strong for me. So Tinubu has a lot going for him. He's going to rely on a lot of proxy. 36 governors means 36 centers of campaign, but the problem is that he's not going to be anywhere. He hasn't seemed to be not to be disposed, maybe not physically strong enough to traverse and talk to people, and maybe doesn't even care much about talking to people because the last election, in fact, don't look for election. His presidency has been a presidency of some kind of perverse stoicism and perverse dignity. Don't talk to people. It doesn't make broadcast. So he's not going to campaign, but somehow he believes he can win because they got a system, they have the operations. He had Wike boast in a stupid manner, actually, that if you had been in a Ondo or Osho, Tinubu would have won. I mean, basically telling you that are you a voter? Simply means that if I'm there, I will engineer the process and take victory out of defeat. I mean, that language suggests that these guys, apart from thinking they are too powerful, I think they are also silly and foolish, that they don't know even what. How can you say the president has commended the governor and says free and fair, boasting, president has taken glory that he ran a free and fair election. And this guy is saying, oh, if you wanted it, he would have told me, and I will go there and get it. What kind of senseless talk is that? So the many things we don't know. Whether the election will be free and fair, these are the caveats. Whether the security will break everybody's head on the voting day, lock people in and allow the result to be written, we don't know. Whether the court will typically go roguish in many cases, we don't know. So, but if you are analyzing on how people feel, and democracy is about people voting their preference, I think that Tinubu is beatable by either of the presidential aspirants or together.
All right, there are those political pundits have argued that without a united opposition, that it will be difficult to beat President Tinubu. And now we have a group called the G100 Mission. They've kickstarted plans to see whether they can rally behind a united opposition. What is your take on this?
Let me start with saying that the G100 is a group I know well, and by the way, as a matter of behind, I'm part of the initial thoughts about it, and I'm in touch with them every day. The point for me is a united opposition is very good because not just win an election, it creates the political theorists argue that the best politics is one that is two-party structure, either de facto or de jure, by law or by fact. So you have two major parties that are contending. So they have two different platforms for governance. They have, congregate and create an alternative. And so voters vote A or B. So if you look across the world, you see that there's either by law or by fact, de facto, two parties. And again, a united opposition, in my view, will strengthen commitment to stop Nigeria from becoming a dictatorship, to fight back, to keep institutions independent and neutral. If there are small splitters, fragments, their efforts will be almost insubstantial. So the notion is correct. The idea also that if they all come together, which looks now almost very difficult, under one platform, of course, I've told you this analysis of how much Atiku is strong in which area and how much will be strong. So if the two of them were together, and hopefully their voters and supporters were together, the assumption people also make is that they assume that if you probably, which is what most of the people fancy, and Atiku as president as Amadi as vice, assuming that is even possible or acceptable to P2B, will it be acceptable to P2B's voters? People also feel that's the interesting thing about P2B. P2B's support base is unlike any other support base, that they are not people that you paid for. That means they're not people who are beholden to you, grateful for what you have done for them. So Tinubu has his loyalists who he has brought up, helped, put into political positions. And so they are Tinubu people. So they have a debt to pay. But I remember when I used to work with Chief Gani Fawemi, and they had a case against Rotimi Williams against the Supreme Court Concord case. And Rotimi Williams announced senior advocates, T.O.S. Benson, Anyame, announced array of 9 senior advocates appeared with him for Concord. And Chief Gani was supposed to announce, he says, he made a comment, he said, "My Lord, I appear here with my friends who have no reason to be grateful." So Chief Gani's argument is that these guys, senior advocates, are people that are grateful to the Supreme Court justices for making them either senior advocates or helping them with briefs or cases. But here are people with me who have no reason to be grateful to anybody. These are people on their own. They volunteered to be here. They know. So you mentioned about them. The same with P2B. P2B supporters have no reason to be grateful. They're not paying P2B for what he did for them. They are people who have an idea of the Nigeria they want. And in their view, this is the man who embodies it. So P2B cannot count them as captive people. He can turn him to an Atiku or Tinubu platform. So if he goes in, you also have to find an explanation why these guys will go in. That's the danger of the logic of coming together. But if, for example, Atiku Abubakar lays a step down and says it's Southampton, let him finish it. Mr. P2B is competent, is able, and becomes president and says I endorse him. It's more likely that Atiku Abubakar's supporters will follow through because these are professional politicians whose view that. But so the Obi supporters also a mistake. We assume that they will turn in if there's a common Obi as VP. But many of them have said, look, that's not what we're bargaining for. This is why we're in this because we have a vision of change. It's just like the US politics. See the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, as much as you deplore them, talk around their illusory notion of governance and their extremist views. But the point is that these are ideologically committed guys who are taking no prisoners, who you can't say, you can flip them. So if the Democratic Party, for example, feels somebody whose views are extremely diametrically opposed to their view, they're not going to vote that person. Do you get the point I mean? Because they have what they stand for. So I like the idea of coming together. And I've said it, and I think the G100 is doing that too. If you can't get a common presidential candidate out of them, you can get a common commitment to fight this election in a decent, development-oriented manner. You can create a common platform to share ideas so that whoever wins, they can together focus on development. You see, politics oftentimes is the enemy of development. And the politics we're playing is actually cannot give us development. So this new idea will be, after election, it's not about winning or losing. We have to also get back to building this economy. This is a ravaged economy. This is a country, I've said before, I posted it on Facebook today, that Nigeria has a choice between dropping down to Sudan and Somalia or ascending to Bangladesh. It's our nearest, you can't even talk about Taiwan. I mean, the gap cannot be bridged in 4 years. We have to get to Bangladesh, where our prospects start looking better. And the way we cannot become a country of concern for investment, future. Today, the Nigerian outlook, socio-economic and socio-political, is gloomy. If you look at literacy rates, yes, we might be doing 70% or thereabout nationally, but you look at the South, Northwest, one of the biggest zone, it's about 30-something to 38. And no country has ever grown sustainably with less than 70%. You can't take off industrially with less than 70-something, 75 to maybe 80% literacy rate. So what that means, therefore, is that this group can come and say, we prefer to have one candidate, but if we can't get it, we work together first to protect free and fair election. The parties have been very, unconcerned about the process of election. They're assuming that if you come together and get everyone together, win election, the biggest challenge to defeating Tinubu is the electoral system. The biggest challenge to defeating Tinubu is the state capture, is the judiciary, is the military. So if they work together to free and fair election, to be frank, as much as I would support P2B, I don't mind Tinubu winning free and fair or Atiku winning free and fair. The biggest challenge for Nigeria is free and fair election, because free and fair election does not guarantee development, but it forecloses conflicts arising from sharing of power and puts you in a position now to do the developmental work. So if 2023 election is rigged, we might not have a country. We might be dealing with patches, with managing conflict for the next 4 years. And so that's why, for me, the most important thing to focus on is free and fair election. And whoever wins fairly, if Tinubu is returned fairly for a second term, that is democracy. Because the people is about what the people want. So your job is to make sure the people, what they want is expressed. You see, democracy does not equal development, but democracy that is not democratic equals underdevelopment. The worst thing you can do to your country is to run this kind of democracy. It's better to have an authoritarian, dictatorial, whether military rule that is coherent, focused, not thinking about how to manipulate public opinion, not struggling and wasting time in doing politics, but focus on a vision. You're going to arrive at development faster than a democracy that's shambolic, that's electoral autocracy, where the public officials are interested in how to rig election, how they to buy up institutions, buy judges, buy INEC officials. It's a waste of time. So I want fair and fair election. Tinubu wins, fair and fair, good. We all support him. Tinubu lose, fair and fair, good. Atiku wins, fair and fair, good. Obi wins, fair and fair. So even as much as I want Mr. Peter Obi to win because I think he has a better prospect to get this country moving. But whoever wins through fair and fair is good. Whoever wins through rigged election is bad.
Let's look at the credibility of this G100 mission and the people behind it. How do you rate their mission in terms of credibility and those behind this mission?
Okay, institutionally, many of the people there are ADC people, clearly. I supported and I suggested some names to balance it when they asked me. So some of the people from NDC came through my suggestion because they said, Sam, I said, yes, this is a mission. As long as it's credible, it's okay. But Lukman Salim, who is the anchor person, I would see him as a credible person. He was in APC and he has been fighting for basic, organizational logic to prevail, and he left APC. In ADC, he's also been somebody whose voice has been clear and consistent and strong to say, let's run the party well. And recently we heard that he has suspended his membership. But many people think that because of their institutional loyalties and embeddedness, that this is an Atiku move. Some people say, oh, this is to correlate P2P. But I think we should allow them to drive this agenda, because ultimately, even if they don't arrive, this election will be good for all if you have a coherent opposition, including the small parties, providing a counterweight to what is looking like a big 20 tons gorilla, 20 pounds gorilla in the room, the ruling party, that has sucked up every energy, that has collected all the governors, so to say, those who are not in are working with them, like Buba Gladima said, it says only 1.5 is not working, which is Makinde, and the other half is
Oti.
No, the other half, Oti is included in those who are working for Tinubu in Buba Gladima's analysis. It's only the Bauchi man who he says half, because the Bauchi man was advised not to join a major opposition. So he's also become target. So he joined what could look like as a soft opposition. So Tinubu's people will not go gung-ho and,
go
blazing against him. So a tactical move, he said, you guys continue, I stay here. But of course, the rest, they say, are working for Tinubu, including Oti, according to Buba Gladima. So when you have that kind of presidential candidate who collects everybody, or who has collected everybody, and of course, he appointed INEC, so with due respect to the integrity of the INEC chair and the commissioners, I'm not going to say they are bad guys, they can rise to the game, but they are appointees of Mr. President. Everybody there was nominated by either the president himself or presidential minders who have a script to deliver. So, technically speaking, you have to assume that INEC will work for Tinubu. I'm an institutionalist. And what I mean is, if you understand institutions, you map them out, their trajectory, the psychology. So I would place INEC on Tinubu's table and then force them and then watch them. So each election I assess. So it's only on INEC to prove that they're not on Tinubu's side, because they appointed them. We expect the pathology of institutions in Africa, and INEC over the years has been that exceptional. The independence and neutrality is the exception, not the rule. So you'll be foolish to presume the exception and not the rule. You presume the rule and work towards the exception. So INEC so far, we need to force them to be independent. I mean, there's no way the minister of FCT is a smart guy. For him to say, if I go there, I get the result, means he has nothing else. There's no way to get the result in a vote than convincing voters to vote or stealing their vote. We mystify things. Look, voters in election, the only way to get the result is voters willingly vote for you, or voters are paid to vote for you, or you change their votes. So they understand that INEC, what is malleable. So if you have that kind of situation, having one party, the opposition, come together is competitive. You see, democracy's logic for development is competition. And what that means is that everybody knows that they could lose election, so they want to work hard. Imagine if the president, Nigeria is like US or other democracies, and the election, the polls are showing that the president is running underwater, 15 points adrift of either P2B or Atiku Abubakar. Imagine what the president will do. He will change his language, he will be in the streets, he will be talking to Nigerians, he will send his son, everybody say, beg the people of the country. He will look at what he has done wrong. He will start doing the right thing because he wants to catch up. He will know that he's going to lose the election. There's no magic. But here in Nigeria, because elections are easily rigged, because what is a vote? There are many ways to kill a rat. The president sits back, he doesn't care. So the secret of good governance in a democracy is the nature of the competitive nature of the election. If elections are competitive, incumbents know that they will lose if voters feel bad about them. And everything you see happening in America, Trump, them walking up and down on Iran, is to see how they can shift the mindset of voters. Because if they don't shift that mindset, whether through propaganda, whether through spokesperson, or whether substantive work, if they don't shift that mindset, they will lose the election. They can't steal it the way we steal here. So for me, G100, beyond their credibility questions and their commitments, they should focus a lot on how do we ensure that first and foremost, the elections will reflect exactly what the people want. Then, if we all come together, great for opposition. But if they run differently, and the election is free and fair, great for Nigeria.
You've said that the opposition is possible for an individual to beat President Tinubu. Let's try to look at the electoral map, zone by zone, how any of the individuals you think you are supporting P2B outrightly, how do you think he can beat Tinubu?
Okay, so I'll bring back the 2023 map. Start from there. In 2023 map, Tinubu got 8 point something official, and Atiku got 6.8 or 6 point something, 6.6 or 6.8, and P2B got 6.1 official results. Already we knew that Labour Party didn't have up to 20-30% agents anywhere. So some of the elections that are compromised, these are contested narrative, but that's a popular narrative around P2B's camp. Places like Akwa Ibom, they claimed so many places they lost votes or they won, but they were placed second. So the distance wasn't that much. The distance between the three of them wasn't that much. So if you use that as a benchmark, the distance was. Has Tinubu improved his electoral map? I would say no, not much. Because again, I rest on theory. The theory that if a government is not governing well, people will likely not vote them more. And the theory that when you are in power, you've lost your appeal. You now run on record. If the record is bad, people will not vote. So I'm a captive of theory. So the theory is simple. That if you promise they're going to build me a house, and I commission you, and you fail, the house is crooked, no balcony, bevel, as they say in local parlance, you've lost your credibility. Is that not correct? If I have to do a second house, I would likely not vote for you. I would likely not hire you. So Tinubu's hiring depends on performance. And I have taken the view that that performance has been bad. And people, Vox Populi, people are saying the same thing. So I wouldn't see Tinubu do extraordinary now. Tinubu has more desperation, more foot soldiers perhaps who are going to the city boys and everybody who's, and more money. So would they buy votes? Maybe. That's why I said, let's remove the caveats. I'm presuming a free and fair election, which is an election where voters go and vote their preference. I'm saying that if we do that, I don't see Tinubu expanding his 6.8 or so.
8 points.
Sorry, 8 point something million votes. I see him dropping that vote. If you have a free and fair election, unlike 2023, I see Mr. P2B, even if he didn't, his people are claiming some like 10 million. This is, at least I see him having up to 7 or so million votes. I say Atiku probably doing well. So my guess is this: it will be a very competitive election because these two candidates need to up to get to where Tinubu is. They need to have at least extra 2 million. I'd like to find it again. The big elephant in the room: voter apathy. Are we going to see voters come out? Last election was around 28% voted. I think around 28 to 30 or so percent voted, which is very low. Now, if 94 million people registered to vote in the last election, and only roughly put about 20-something or 20 million people voted, 8 plus 6 is 12, basically about maybe 20, not more than 20% people voted for that, or 20 million people voted. What happened to the rest 60? Can those 60 million, or at least 30 of them, come into the vote this time around? I think the vote, where would the larger percentage of those who didn't vote for? Those are the mechanisms that the party should be working on. So at this stage, we are starting the game. We don't have clear data. We've not seen electoral behavior. We've not seen the campaign unfold. Many things, it's still early to predict who wins. But I'm saying that there's nothing that says that either of these candidates cannot defeat Tinubu, including Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who I say, relatively to the two, has less prospect of meeting, the requirement of spread. Could win highest vote depending on how the North votes, because if all the Norths, which I don't agree, I don't think will ever happen, because also Atiku's presidency also precloses presidency of some other actors. Northern actors. You see, that's the trick about it. Many northern, apart from Atiku Abubakar, most of the northern leaders prefer the power to be in the south for the next 4 years. But that gives opportunity to run. Well, Atiku is the only northern leader who is actually wants to take power now. The rest want to take it in 2031, where the south will exhaust their. So I see them, especially those in the APC, working very hard to see Atiku defeated, because it's in their own interest that Tinubu, particularly, finishes as president, and some of them, P2B, with his commitment for 4 years, better option still. Because in Atiku, we know that even people are old and tired, the presidency has a way of keeping them on for 8 years. We saw that, you see it with Biden, you see it with Trump. When they leave, they can worsen, health-wise. But once they're there, there's a capacity to keep them, managing all the way. So you can't rule out at 8 years, if Atiku wins, that he's going to confirm himself for another 4 years. Whether he's strong or not, because that's how we roll here. That's how it works. And so the point I'm driving at is that some of these northern leaders also would want to be able to contest for power in 2031. Are they going to all line up behind Atiku Abubakar to take the job for 8 years possibility? And what happens to them? Because it flies back to south. So transactions. So I think that my prediction that North will be shared, maybe not to reflect more or less 2023. If, with the exception that with clearer voting, with more accuracy, I see Mr. Peter B. with Kwazo pick more votes than Peter did in 2023. I see Tinubu holding his age, if you ask me, in North.
But there are those, if you look at the Northerners, the way they've been speaking, in terms of the North have suffered enough. So they want, if you leave them, power shift. And they have one of their own on the ballots. Do you think they will want to abandon one of their own?
What's
the way they've been speaking?
The problem with the North, the difficulty of predicting the North is, are you focusing on religion or ethnicity more? Which one counts more? Some people, religion is everything. And so the Muslim is yogurt. It's so good to, it's sweet in their ear, in their mouth. Some people say, but again, let's get to real fact. The North has not suffered because of power in the North. Power was in the North for 8 years with Buhari, and it was a devastation for the North. The North has suffered because North has been neglected, and that neglect that nobody has invested in literacy. I told you this, the data. Northwest has about 30 to 38% literacy, whereas Imo has 96 to 98. Lagos, the whole of the South, average between 80 to 80, 98. So that's a disparity should cure. If you look at per capita income, look at things that matter. So there's a selfishness of look at the North as a vote, just votes. North is a development challenge and opportunity for Nigeria. And that's one of the reasons why I support Mr. Tinubu. Because the person who has flagged the North as a critical development challenge and opportunity. You hear him talk about the North has land more than Netherlands. The North should be a net exporter. Look, Bangladesh exported in 2019, 2020, Bangladesh exported $3 billion monthly of textile. $3 billion. More than 14 African countries export. So really, the question around the North should be around how do we get the North, one, ramp up literacy. Take out, Jonathan wanted to do the Almajiri. Politics stopped it. You have to educate this guy. You have to, you see, Nigeria today, unfortunately, has two economies. Nigeria is two countries together, the South and the North. With all the due respect, in terms of economic development, the North looks like Sudan and Somalia. In terms of Niger, others, in terms of economics, that shouldn't be. And the North has the numbers. So you can't develop more than the North. The North cancels all your advantage you have in the South. So I think the Northerners are not going to be thinking around, oh, we'll have power 8 years of Buhari power. It created for us chaos, poverty, more conflict. And now 4 years of Tinubu, our immediate challenge is to restore back that power and create further chaos. No. First, on equity, the North has done 8 years, continuous. Power shift to the South for 8 years. Whether I like Tinubu or not, whether I'm going to be for Tinubu or the Duke or P2B, you have to concede that there's no urgency for power to shift to the North. There's none. It's a personal urgency. It's the urgency of Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who has the right to contest. There's no northern urgency to shift power back to the North. There's no urgency. What exists is the urgency to invest attention, resources, and leadership to ramp up literacy in the North to South level in 4 years, to develop agriculture and agro-processing in order to create more jobs and reduce poverty. If you look at the poverty index, MBS, not from World Bank, poverty is essentially, not completely, a northern phenomenon. In terms of disparity between the poverty rate in North and South, that is the point. That's where we should be talking about. Honestly, if we really love the North and love ourselves as a country, again, we are interdependent. If the North is not working, the country can work. They have the numbers, they have the land mass, they have the resources. So if we can't make the North develop, then we can't make the country develop. And again, that's why I find P2B's presidency, for me, fascinating, because he understands, he picks the little things that really matter. The North should not be seen as a voting heaven. So we play today, every election, we appease them. No, North is Nigeria's great opportunity for breakthrough. Investing development and developing the North, even in comparable level with the South in terms of human development and in terms of industrialization, is going to take Nigeria double. Leaving them and selfishly mining the North for votes, cynically, we destroy Nigeria. That's no other way.
All right, let's move on. Let's look at the OK movement. Tell us what you know about the seeming crisis rocking the OK movement that has even led to the sudden resignation of the DG, High Chief Peter May.
Where I sit as a little patriarch, I'm like now becoming a veteran, a small boy, over many years of activism, from student activism to social movement to this and that. I sit in a position where many confluences, many rivers flow to me and they mix. So the OK people also identify me as a leader. They come to me, the two factions come to me. Yesterday, John John's group came and met me by around 10:11. By 2, Jackie came and saw me with a few people. So they see me as, which I find an honor, as somebody who has the objectivity and the intellect and the fairness to solve their problem. But where they are right now is that by 2 o'clock, we're having a small meeting. They're all coming to see me again to try to help them reconcile. Because I believe what attributed to the obedient movement, I'm not a member, by the way, I've never been. Like I tell people don't understand that I'm not a member of any political party. When I was working with Jonathan, I wasn't a member of AP, but I sit in most of the strategy meetings for Jonathan. But I said, I'm not a party member. When I went to election, I'm a little bit like Mr. P2B. If I want to run tomorrow, which I would likely run for governor in Imo State, I will, close to the time I decide for the party. After election, I move away and do other things. Because the problem with Nigerian politics is that it becomes what Max Weber talked about, his vocation of politics. He talks about those who live from politics and those who live for politics. So those who live from politics are vocationists, they are careerists in politics. So if they don't, either they run for House of Assembly this year, if it doesn't work, they can move from House of Reps to Assembly. They can move from Senate to Assembly. So
even local government chairman.
I'm not a politician. That's why I say I'm not a politician. That's why I don't live from politics. I'm a politician to the extent that if I see opportunity for service, I print myself. If they knock me down, I move out again. So people say, well, it's not stable. That's how I want to run my life. So I'm not a politician. But so that, I don't have any of those party membership. I support candidates and I support movements. So I see the obedient movement, I said it clearly, publicly, as one of the best developments in Nigerian politics. Because the young people who are not bought, but who want to use their energy to change game, I will support them. So the OK movement came to me and I said, the problem is that sometimes these youthful movements, idealistic movements, suffer from lack of realism and maturity. And human nature, many people are in the business, they also want to converge personal interests and public interests. Nothing bad about it. They want to also survive. They want to make money. They want to do other kinds of things. So those complexities of emotion and psychology, you have to sit back and say, how does it affect the dynamism, the dialectics of that movement? So part of it is ego. Part of it is people who quest for leadership. People want to lead outfits. They've invested their time, their resources. They created something, and they feel that, look, they have to own this thing and drive it. Not a big crisis, because they are also always conversing and meeting. The common thing with all of them that they say they are committed to work 100% for P2B. They are all agree that they want to ensure that in 2027 election, P2B and Kwankwaso get elected. But what they say, what then matters is how do you then put your structure. Because my interest, like I told them, I said, my interest is not PW getting win. I'm thinking about transformation. I know that these movements, and I did a work, we did Abuja School, is doing a work on what we call social academy. And the idea is to bring back social movements. But in history, social movements don't have to be non-partisan. People make the mistake. So many of the people in the world leading social movements today are partisan, meaning that at the time, they identify a political platform that furthers that agenda and support them. They're not partisan, that they are paid up members of political parties. Some of the people who are in the OK movement are not even ADC but in this election, they feel like they want to elect P2B and the Kwankwaso because they embody what they think is the right direction. So as a neutral, politically non-partisan person, I tell them, in fact, sometimes some groups that are working for APC people come to me. I have some of my mentees in Abuja School, fellows, who are APC operatives, and they come to me and they ask me, so what do you advise? I advise them. I say, I'm going to vote for P2B, but I recognize your right to vote for Tinubu. I recognize the right to mobilize for Tinubu. And they come, they are part of my school, they're part of my policy group. And I advise them, I say, okay, guys, I said, one of them asked me, can you meet our chairman? I said, of course, I will tell your chairman, this, why can people do this? When you win, do this and do that. For me, my commitment is change in Nigeria. And I believe the political process has to be engaged. So what's happening in the OK movement is that they are now coming back to say, okay, can we harmonize and have one platform? And I think that ultimately they'll get one platform. Again, just like I told you about the G100, every effort to aggregate social forces together to represent a spectrum of related values is the right way. So let's have two broad values, APC represent 1/3. These other groups represent 1/3. So people cannot say, let's try APC this year. This value they represent, whatever it is. And after 4 years, it didn't work. So APC will go back and retool. That's the pluralism I like. So for me, I'm not shy of working with political parties and political platforms, even as I'm not, as at now, a member or a partisan. And like I told, I support Mr. Peter, but I'm not going to be part of presidential campaign team. But I will provide strategic advice because I believe in his vision, and I think we can rethink that vision. Again, this is where I'm an intellectual activist. What that means that if I see opportunity, I try to capture it and redefine it to suit what I want. So some of the presidential aspirants have their ideas, but they're not clear enough. Some of them have instinct, motivation. P2P wants to do good, but he probably doesn't understand all the contexts, the factors that affect doing good. Our job as intellectual activists is to latch on that project, help define it, provide intellectual contour and direction, and say, if you do this, and you see it in Europe, you see it with Habermas, others who created the European Union. They are intellectuals of the left who sense a regime in power could do something, and they feel it. My favorite is Plato on the guy who went on the mission to Sicily, Dion, his father. So the philosopher king, Plato, they told Plato, oh, the king wants philosophy. He wants to do well. Plato went there, tried his best to train the man. The man failed. Plato came back, disappointed. After many years, the son of the king is now the one who really loves philosophy. Please come. Plato was confused. He went again. And then he ended up. So maybe I'm in that position where if they tell me that a particular people want change, I'll go and say, is it true? Can I help? And I provide that support. If it fails, I go back and wait. So for me, I'm dedicated to the idea of helping these young boys, whether it's OK Movement, Obedient Movement, to remain focused and to develop the intellectual fiber and the moral character to continuously challenge the Nigerian state. This country, we need to disrupt the politics without being violent. I spoke at the P2B book launch where I said, we need a ballot box revolution. Any other revolution will be dangerous. But a ballot box revolution will tactically displace the old order and deepen a new value system that will not provoke the ancient regime, to fight back because it's electoral. Before they know it, you have removed the cheese, you have moved the table, reordered the setting, and then they'll be shocked. So that's what Nigeria needs. Nigeria needs a peaceful revolution through electoral system. But that means you have to repair the electoral system, you have to repair the social movements themselves, and create a group of persons who have the idealism, but at the same time the realism that sometimes they compare about Mr. P2P, he's not providing leadership, he's not, and they come to me and say, look, the realism is that you are the ones who will drive this change, not him. You need to also opportunistically utilize his presence. You get the point? To get the values you want. So you should learn how to be politically smart and realistic. That these guys are also somehow flawed in many ways, but this is what we have, and this is what we have to use to achieve the improvement that we want in our society.
All right, the political parties have signed the peace pact. Ironically, President Tinubu was absent. Is it signing of this peace pact of any significance, and what does his absence also signify, since he's the president and we're talking about elections that we know are prone to violence?
I was there, but I wasn't there during the signing. I was there earlier with Cardinal at the VIP. We stayed long, and then when they started, I walked away. I've had this conversation with Bishop Kuka many times, and his view has been that, yes, this peace pact may be violated, but there's nothing wrong. And Kuka has an institutional view of life, that these symbolisms matter, these stories will tell matter, these narratives matter. So, yes, they violate it, but this reminder that there's a different way to go is good. So for me, I would say not much meaningful in terms of how it impacts on performance of politicians during campaign and voting and after voting. But it's an important ritual that perhaps continues to reinforce the expectation that politics should not be warfare. But what is missing is that, Fufela said, Oyibo teach us nonsense. So Oyibo teach something. When students fail, teacher suppose say it don't fail. But Oyibo no talk so. So the problem is that the elders in the peace committee are not calling out those who transgress these codes. We saw the last 23 election. There's a man called Bayo Onoga who went almost roguish, abusing, spreading hate crime. How did the committee call it out? There are many people on both sides, on all the sides, who we are attacking, ethnic dog whistle, okay? Spreading hatred against the Nigerian law, the cybercrime law, other laws. I had to even write to the IG myself, petition, when one guy who works for the Sawolu, the Lagos governor, uses his handle, Lagospedia, to spread clear hate speech against Igbo people after the election. I wrote to the IG, and they made some calls to me to come for. So the point is not that the peace committee is superintending over a worthless process. The point is that the peace committee does nothing to protect the integrity and efficacy of what it did, of the peace. So you're not police, you're not going to prosecute anybody. Call it out. Issue reports, quarterly reports on peace, electoral peace in Nigeria. And you cite people whose conducts have gone against their commitments. That has a disciplinary effect. It's not about jailing people all the time. Naming and shaming. This is politics. If politicians get bad name, it affects them. They can pull back. But the problem is that we're not calling people out. So if, like I said, Bayo Onoga now, you call the person out. I said, this one is below, respectable. This is the despicable conduct. Some Amadi does something wrong. He said, this is terrible. This is bad. They call me out. Next time, I know that there's a watchdog. So the problem with the peace process is that there's no mechanism to even tell a story around the violation. Forget the impeachment, forget the arrest, detention. Just name it. Say it. Say that Mr. X has not done well in this matter. I mean, the kind of thing that Governor Minister Wike said is the kind of thing you can say, no. If I was an ex-chairman and somebody said something like, if I was there, I would have won this election, I will issue a statement and say, stop that nonsense. Because what they're telling us is that you own us. How do we read it? Are you going to break the hand of voters and change their... Are you going to break their brain? They voted. The integrity of the result is that this is what people voted. Is that not correct? And somebody telling you that if I was there, if the president wanted it...
Do you think he says
that's
like
a
this
violent speech, yeah?
He says such things and get away with it because it appeals to his principal. It appeals to those who hire them, even the INEC you are talking about.
Yeah.
Is it because it appeals to whom they are, quote and unquote, serving? That's why they don't condemn it or call the person out.
Three things. There's a culture of stupidity, institutionalized insanity in Nigeria, institutionalized. I mean, when I say culture, do you watch his Monday broadcasts every day? Journalists sit there gleefully, and the man will be vituperating because he pays the money. That's not journalism. I can tell you that in my view. That's not journalism. It can't be, we can't be giving you a microphone to be talking nonsense all the time. I mean, it can't be doing that. Abusing people. So there's a culture of lack of self-dignity in Nigeria. But anybody who has money, anybody who is powerful, you have to worship them. You can't say the truth. It cuts across the country. It's a culture we have created for ourselves. Maybe because of poverty. We have celebrated ill-gotten wealth. I mean, somebody will come and boast. What work have you done before? If you look at the CV of these guys, they have worked nowhere before. Some of them left secondary school, became local government chairman. The salary of local government chairman is well known. They become commissioners, maybe, become governor. And then they are talking about as if they are Elon Musk. Even Dangote, look at Davido's father with extreme humility. I mean, these are billionaires. People work their own money. Let's forget what they, but at least they were not working in government. So the problem with Nigeria is this. We have lost our human dignity and have now submitted to power and wealth, no matter how gotten. I see some people who are basically a governor, and so what? And then everybody has to, I used to be chief executive of a grade A federal parastatal. And the vice president, people will come and send something from it. I'll go to VP and say, no, we cannot do this. This is contrary to, I can't. And the vice president will say, the president will say, leave Sam. Everybody should leave Sam to do. Let's have one person who is sane. That's what the president will say, leave Sam. That's why I respect Jonathan. I challenge governors. I say, no, you can't do that. So if I'm an INEC chairman, I'm telling you for free, I wish a statement against Wike straight away. You can't say that. You can't come and say election will conduct that if you were there. Who are you? Are you the voters? Look at the governor of Ondo, Oshu. He won an election. Want to thank Mr. President. Thank the President for what? He's President the voter. So everything we do has element of silliness, foolishness. It doesn't appear to us. Think about it. Mr. President says, I guarantee for a fair election. I'm not going to interfere. INEC is independent. Don't forget, when the President met the Catholic bishops, his message was, INEC is free and fair. It's independent. That's the President himself saying so. Then, election, his party loses election, big loss. They deployed over 11 or so governors. The Senate President was there. All of them were there. They did all they can do legitimately, I presume, to win election, which is fair. You get the point. They lost. And what does the governor say? I want to thank the President. Thank him for what? So we have internalized this mental slavery. Nothing concerns the President, good or bad. It's not he didn't do anything wrong. He stayed in his office doing his work. You get the point? His party ran election. He gave them support. They lost. He accepted. The President called you. The President accepted the result. Is that not correct? But you yourself feel you are bound to thank the President. And then his minister says, oh, if the President had wanted, just thank the President, he didn't want this result. Everything reeks of stupidity. I'm being frank. I'm being clear. Let's sit back and look at what we do in Nigeria. What's your business? The President is not interfering. He says so. You've won an election. Thank the voters. Many people died because of you. And the only thing you care about is thank the President for not interfering. So that brings the point that all these Nigerian politicians on all the sides don't even believe in election. I mean, that guy, the governor of Osun, who instead of thanking the people who voted for him, is thanking the President. In his mind, he believed that the President could steal the election. Everybody could. So there's nobody really sitting back and saying, why are we speaking like this? So if you look at Nigerian leadership and do a synthetic analysis of the language we use every day, it conveys a sense of institutional, not individual, institutional kind of silliness. I mean, why are people saying this? Why would the minister of a government that is trying to say we are free and fair, a president who is struggling to free himself from accusation of state capture, a president who is struggling to free himself from allegation implicit in the Catholic bishop's statement around the movement to one-party state, why would the minister of the FCT, this is meaning the minister of the president himself, feel he has to boast that if the president wanted, he would have sent me and I would have gotten it? He didn't say he would have sent me to campaign. Maybe he has a special rhetoric that he will convince Oshi people. He will send me that day and I'll get it. So what will you do? Magic. You are going to rig the election. So how does that rhetoric sit with what the president is saying and what decent people should say? So the Nigerian problem is deep. It's a problem of logic. It's a problem of knowledge, epistemology. It's a problem of sociology, how people behave and interact. So people sit and feel that their life means nothing. Their life has to be donated to them by president or governor or minister. I mean, so you see a minister of city, they feel like it's God. And they're sitting there saying things that don't make sense. And you don't walk away. Say, my friend, I don't believe in you. So that's the problem. And I see it every day in Washington. As powerful as American president is, the most powerful. I mean, our own presidents are like, they're like chefs to American president in any sense you look at it. But you see journalists hold their own. Say, no, Mr. President, that's not true. You see them ask difficult questions. Say, no. But you said this before. You're not right. In as much as you might think they are ideologically weaponized or fighting, but that's what it is. It shows at least a sense that these people see themselves as human beings. They see themselves as people who have common sense and agency. You can't just sit there and be stomaching nonsense. So for me, the damage they are doing is not that they are talking nonsense, it's that they are changing the psychology of the country and they're making the country less fit for democracy. Because if the social psychology is all about, boasting, it's all about self-flagellation, that's killing yourself, beating yourself up as citizens to please. It's like a show in the old Greek where people come out and fight in the Muslim against themselves and they kill themselves and stab themselves to please royalties. That's really not how a democracy looks.
Let's wrap up this way. The president has said that we have to be mindful of invasion of states. Former President Goodluck Jonathan, anyway, has said we must be mindful the way we invade states during off-cycle election, that it threatens Nigeria's democratic stability. What are your thoughts?
Everything that Jonathan says we should take it seriously. We should take red pen and mark it. It speaks from a deep decency, and now much more than he was president, understanding, because he has traveled, he has listened to people, he understands what's missing. And that call is, think about it. Election is going on, and they have 10 governors, not just walking to the selection room quietly and help with strategy. They walk in with a boast, like the Edo governor. We have come to snuff off their head. And then you see their hype men doing video. Come on. First, it's an assault on the sovereignty of subnationals. These states have commander-in-chief, which is the state governor. We don't understand that the states are semi-sovereigns under the constitution. The governor, just like the president is to the states. You can't just invade them that way. Not even the president himself, governors, you come in and then you make statements as if there's a war being waged against that state. This is a federal government plus maybe 35 or 34 state governors, breathing down on one state governor. That's not good. And secondly, like I said, we should reduce politics and make politics a discourse around who should rule, so that we don't create too much, the stakes are not too high. The failure or success becomes, life and death. We should, if you ask me, a developmental state like Nigeria, a state like Nigeria that needs development, should make politics small and make national consensus large. So politics becomes a small side of social interaction. We make it small, civil, demilitarize it, so that it happens as if it never happened. And then as soon as it's over, we get back to, and that's why people argue sometimes, think that maybe a military rule is better, or a dictatorship, because they think that consensus, that sense of oneness, leaders pulling together to address problems. We should be problem solving. And so Jonathan is correct. Don't create the impression that we're invading Ondo, Oshu, Lagos. No. Don't get the impression that the federal power is coming to suffocate you. This is politics. And trust the local actors, your party leaders in those states, to fight legitimately and win. And when they lose, you plan again and say, okay, why did we lose? Again, we should also accept that even anywhere in the world, there are strongholds of different parties that you don't intend to win. That's a Nigerian problem. So you can't hope to win, for example, presidential election or with a governor, let's say, who is doing very well in his state, except you want to use warfare, because you concede that this is not our stronghold. That's how it's supposed to be.
Thank you, Doc. It's always a pleasure having you around.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.